Hey, Channel Insiders, I'm your host, Katie Bavoso, and welcome back for part 2 of my interview with the team from MSP Unplugged. If you haven't already, head on over to channelinsider.com right now to catch up on part 1. Today in part 2, we continue our discussion on advising other MSPs in the industry. Plus, my guests, Paco, Lebron, and Kirkendoll, get to share a few MSP wins of their own. When you're talking to the MSP audience on your podcast, something that I find really comforting when I listen is that you're very big on knowing that people learn at their own pace. You're very protective of that learning experience, and I think that that's very special. So talk to me about the audience feedback that you've gotten.
It's cool because, it's comforting to hear when I'm out there and I see people and they're like, man, we heard you. And it's like, they love to have a safe place where someone is talking at their level and they feel comfortable. And they love the fact that you've been there before. They see us out there. They look at us as influencers like, man, I can't believe you guys went through that. But we keep it real, right? We take off the mask, we uncover, and we're like the emperor with no clothes, right? We're 100% out there, putting it out there, right, wrong, or indifferent. We're not saying that what we did was 100% right, or we were, hey, we know all the new. We're just sharing our experiences to be vulnerable. Right. And I think that's the key piece that we learn in this industry across the board is not a lot of places allow you to go and be vulnerable and allow you to put it out there because you're either judged or you're, as Paco said, you're a trunk slammer or a one man band or a pizza delivery guy, or, hey, you've been doing this for 20 years and you're still under 3 million. What's going on with that? And sometimes that's just where they want to be. That's kind of, they like what they're doing at the size they want to get done, because as you grow, there's a different set of resources and different things that brings challenge to the table. And what I hear a lot of is that, hey, man, it's a safe place to hear people that we know and look up to in the industry having the same struggles that we are having, and you're vulnerable and you put yourself out there, that you're not above the fold. And I think that's what I hear a lot of. And it's comforting to know that we're able to do that.
When we first started doing this, right, it was just, hey, it was an outlet. I love what Corey says recently when he's joined us is this is our therapy session. This is our ability to explain, talk about, our stories that we had in the week. And that's the thing, the relatability. And so a lot of the emails and calls and just people coming up to us has just been, it'll be either a thank you, really found value of X, we needed this help and you provided that, or it's a matter of, look, this is our scenario, this is our situation, what would you do in this scenario? And happy to, map it out. And a lot of those have asked us to just, hey, can we consistently give you a call, or can we keep in touch? And, that's why we're here, and really being able to provide our experiences and our ability to really provide that value, hopefully, that they can succeed in. And that's the point why we do it, right? It's one of those where, I truly feel that education is at its own pace. I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, but I know that I have the ability I learn in my own way and that we can get there. And so the reason why it's such a big thing for me, at least for the podcast and us doing this, is that I often see in our own communities, there are members that feel that, they have a specific level of knowledge and that people should be at that level of knowledge and there should be no excuses. And so, sometimes you see badgering, sometimes you see close line to bullying. And so we have a zero, I don't know what the proper way of saying it in our community, but there's a insert swear word here, that we have zero tolerance for in our community. And so if there's any badgering of sort, or we don't want anybody feeling dumb, we don't want anybody feeling stupid, you ask a question, it gets answered. Yes, they could have gone to Google, but they're asking for real life experiences. And so that's the important piece of this. And that's why I'm a big proponent of. So I see a lot of that in the industry where people are afraid to ask questions because they're like, well, maybe I should have known this and I don't know this. And that's what often leads to mistakes. And that's what often leads to issues where if someone had asked, it probably was going to be the same question someone else had. They just didn't hear it in that way. And so that's why we're big on being able to protect, as you mentioned, I like the way you had said that, on how someone is being educated and learning at their own pace.
We practice what we preach. Paco pick up the call and be like, hey, man, I'm looking for something that can do this and can do that. And I'm like, yeah, have you checked this out? And then we make the connection. We don't just say, hey, throw it out there and go figure it out. We make the connection and say, yep, here's what it is. Here's who we contact. We'll make a connection. And then this is the big thing. we follow up to make sure that, hey, how did that work out for you? What's going on with that? Because we trust from that perspective. And that's what's really been cool for us as well.
Paco, you brought up Techcon Unplugged. And it sounds to me, based on what you said earlier, Techcon Unplugged came before MSP Unplugged. That was the chicken?
Yeah, so that was the chicken before the egg. So me and, again, Jeff Hallish, my former business partner, we belong to another podcast network, and we just felt like there was a different way of doing this. And so we created the event. And when we created the event, we didn't know what was going to happen. We were like, hey, we just have a different style compared to some similar sized events that were being thrown at the time. And we just had such a hit, and everyone was like, man, this is great. This is really what we're looking for. And, did I know it was going to expand to what it is today? Have not at all. But it just speaks to all the relationships and the great partnerships and great people. Because, Katie, you know how the channel runs. Like, there's people that are transitioning and moving into different roles, new businesses and new companies come into play. And some of those people who you did know from previous companies are there, and they want to provide impact. So it's this ever growing thing that I love that we have in the channel. And so, yeah, Techcon Unplugged came as it was a 1-day event at one point, and it was really to try and drive, again, those 3 key areas. How do you get better at your operational efficiency? How do you help with your security stack and all the cool tools that are out there? And how do you get financially literate? And how do you help prevent all these downfalls and prepare for all the comings that are coming up for your business? And so it went from there to a 2-day event, to 2.5-day event, then back to 2 days. So really, it was just, how do we generate this content for MSPs, by MSPs, with great partnerships from our vendors, and providing a true community event where someone walks in and you just don't know who's who. You can't tell who's a vendor and who's a MSP unless you go to the vendor hall, right? And so that's what came first. That's what's had a great following all these years. And then our hope, once this reimagined version of TechCon, which we'll announce in January, will be hopefully driving that change even more so.
You could make that announcement on my podcast, Paco. It would be okay.
How about this? I'll give you a little teaser.
Please.
I'll say that, for those that love Techcon Unplugged and all that it has done, just know that we're working on a way to bring a little bit of Techcon Unplugged to you, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And maybe it might be a little early, maybe a little earlier than expected.
Okay.
So we'll just leave it at that.
I love it. You heard it here first, folks. Thank you so much, Paco.
No problem.
That also makes me want to ask about, you're talking about Techcon Unplugged. You're talking about how you're really driving the conversation within the MSP community to help people to see it as community and not competition. And that really makes me think about where the MSP and the solution providers in general of the channel are sitting in the power struggle right now. There was a time when I first came on pre-pandemic, if we all can remember that there was such a time, that the vendor really, what they said kind of went. I can't help but notice that the industry has gone in a direction where I feel the MSP or the MSSP or the VAR or the reseller or integrator has a lot more power now, that they get to make more decisions, or they get to say, no, I don't want that. I want this. What can you do for me? You tell me why you deserve my value to the vendors. Would you agree with that? And where did you see that shift kind of take place?
I think the shift is still happening in some cases, and it comes back to the maturity of the MSP and where they're going. But not every MSP is a part of the community, right? There's a lot of them out there that are not a part of the community. So therefore, that power is still yet to be achieved because they're not here. So when I see an MSP or someone, the first thing I want to do is pull them into a community or something to understand that they don't have to go out there and swim alone, right? We're out there with them to go out there and hunt and help them to get better. I think as the education comes and they start looking and really getting down to things like the podcast, coming to shows, talking to other MSPs, hanging out with us, we're really showing them that they have a lot of the power and a lot of the negotiation skills, not to just take and go. And I think that comes from an education. I think a few years ago, we had some great marketing organizations that had a lot of influence that says, hey, if you want to be in security, buy these 3 tools, and now you're in. And they go out there, they got themselves in some trouble, and they got a little gun shy, and it was where it came from. So now they're saying, hey, we need to rethink that situation before I sign up for something or before I do something. There's some questions and things I need to ask to figure out, one, does it match my business partner? Are they a great partner? Are they here? But the only way that you really get that education is being a part of the community community, being around other like-minded people, other MSPs to see who's who in the zoo. Because I mean, if you go to different shows, there is thousands of partners and vendors and everybody out there. And if you sit there and listen to all that, you're like, who does what? They all sound the same. They all look the same. They all do the same. So I think it's that education piece, but I do think I see that power shift going. But what we're also seeing is we're seeing the vendors for the first time are starting to be a lot more transparent. Because on the vendor side, there used to be a lot of cyber shaming, a lot of shaming, a lot of things, and a lot of what we call that was there. And we're seeing that happen as well. So we're seeing that shift on both sides, where they're a little bit more open and they're really starting to understand the true needs of where it is. Because back in the day when I first started, the MSP and the channel was kind of those guys over there. But then they figured out over the last few years, post-pandemic, is like, hold up, there's gold in them, their heels. And now they're back and they're saying, hey, now that power shift is shifting to say, hey, we need to go and figure out how to be better with MSPs. And those who have gotten it, that really understand that channel, I think have been some of the most successful partners in enabling MSPs to be the most successful MSPs as well.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that, I think there's a couple reasons. I think one, there is a much better viewpoint of vendors to MSPs. I think a lot of that, as you mentioned, Katie, was it during that shelter in place COVID before the pandemic? And a lot of it was either several things. A lot of vendors, there was a lot of consolidation happening at the time, leading for vendors to come into the space to provide a different opportunity, different flavor, things of that nature. But a lot of MSPs also exited with a lot of the MSP acquisitions and started their own SaaS companies or partnered with SaaS companies or worked for SaaS companies. And a lot of these vendors now got a true and bred MSP perspective inside of what their offerings are. And I think I've seen a lot of that happen with a lot of the vendors that we see now, where not only are they more involved in the channel, but they also have that MSP perspective where now they are speaking our language versus trying to speak our language because they've heard how things are and they had an advisory council, but now they have people actually working in there, breathing, trying to figure out, hey, that's not working. We have customer experience officers now that were MSPs driving some of these changes inside of that system. And then I think ultimately really where it comes down to is that technology has become so advanced that you don't need the bigger MSPs now to, help with the bottom line. You need a tool or a system that's going to provide much depth. And that's what's now allowing a lot of those to have a voice, have the MSPs bringing to the table, hey, we're not happy with this. We'd like X, things of that nature, which has gotten the attention of enterprise vendors to now start acquiring some of the vendors that are either in our space or open up divisions, speaking to us specifically to our side of the fence, because, from my understanding, everything from enterprise just trickles down. So now they have found, as Corey's mentioned, hey, there might be some opportunities on this side. Let's really invest in it. And for those that have stayed, have made the most out of that opportunity as well by listening and understanding that, yeah, we do have the ability to understand that, yeah, this vendor may check that box, but it may not necessarily put checks in your mailbox. Right. And so it should be able to have, and I can't take credit for that. That's from my friend Juan Fernandez. But basically that allows you to understand that every vendor may look the same and they all do the same thing, but who's your vendor that is going to work for your partnership to drive forward? And I think that's what they're trying to fight for that attention.
I want to talk about the way that the two of you run your businesses. How is this something, first of all, that you can balance with everything that you do for Techcon Unplugged and MSP Unplugged? What are the hamsters in the background that are just keeping these wheels going? Because I don't understand how the three of you sleep at night. Just when do you do it? It's so much going on. How is it something that you're able to balance?
Yeah.
Alcohol, Katie. Alcohol. No. And it's a labor of love, trying to split those two and understanding that they're both equally businesses, right? And so trying to figure out, how do we do these things operational wise? How do we focus on that? And then bringing it to the forefront of, all right, how do we provide this as an ability for value, and getting Corey's input and then helping us, me and Rick, drive what we want to do with this business. And then coming into the podcast with the great content and ability to really speak to the audience. It's just a naturally flowing thing because we just love what we do.
What we figured out a long time ago is you put in the processes and you trust the people that you hire, and trusted where it comes from. Because there's a hard trust in an MSP organization is, hey, one of my techs is going to grab all my stuff and go do some things, or here's where it comes from. I think you have to build it and trust and start to learn how to work on the business and not in the business. And I think that's the piece where we've all gotten to, is that place where we've able to jump up and say, here's what it is. But when we get it to the podcast or Techcon Unplugged, man, it's not a job. It's fun. That's the stuff that we enjoy and we love to do. And we love to share what we got going on out there and learn.
I always like to ask the MSPs and solution providers in general that come on the show about a success story with their business where they really got to help a customer and they love to hang their hat on it. It's their banner moment. It's the pennant for them. I'd love to ask each of you if there is a story that you might be able to share with me about a success story within your own MSPs that you can share.
Being of a Puerto Rican descent, we always, when we find other Puerto Ricans, we always say, oh, we're family, right? And so there was this one business owner, they reached out to us. They said, hey, look, we're in a bad spot, things of that nature. And I said, oh, well, we got into conversation, and it turned out that they were not hacked, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times within that year. And so with different providers. And so it was very mind-boggling that could happen to someone of that nature. And then again, really just hearing the stress and diving into it, and then going into culture, then understanding, oh, well, I really have to help this person, right? Whether we sign on as a client or not, that's just the nature of how we are. And so being able to go from lack of confidence of the MSP space from this client to being able to just really identifying all of the things that were left undone, right? And it just goes back to processes and checklists and things that we should all be doing, and being able to really fortify and give the confidence back to them, where now 3 years later, there has been no type of data leakage. There has been no type of systems being attacked, approached, any type of incidents. And so them having just that conversation probably about a couple months ago to say, we just were at our wits' end, and we just did a Hail Mary to hope that you would be the last one before we just said, we're just done and we're just probably just not even going to do this anymore, to now having a thriving business because we were able to give them that confidence that they can operate without having to worry about stuff that, frankly, they shouldn't have to worry about.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Corey, follow that. Tell me more.
Yeah, Paco, man, you could left that bar down just a little bit, man, just a little bit, right? But I get it. I see how you do it, brother. But, so we spend a lot of time in the nonprofit space. We love to give back, right? And that's the piece where we want to make sure we understand what that looks like. And so a lot of our customers in the nonprofit space will write grants and do things. And so about 1.5 years ago, we decided to dive deep into the world of AI and really help them figure out how to change for people's business. So we just finished our assessment with a nonprofit we had, and they were trying to go down the AI role, trying to figure out how to get it done. And one of their challenges is what the grants that they were winning were very inconsistent, and they didn't understand why, and they didn't know where they could go find other grants to go and apply for. So we came in, did an assessment with them, went through the process, walked through everything. And at the end of that, we walked out to and determined, showed them by leveraging a custom LLM with them, showed them why their grants were missing the point, the ones who won versus the ones who didn't, and helped them tighten those up. We're also able to provide them with a list of grants that they were completely missing because they didn't know that they were qualified to do that. And then the other piece of that is that when we brought them on, like we do with all nonprofits, if we do business, we just are not just your customer. That's not our customer and we're your vendor. We actually participate and donate to their events and their processes, and we continue to go down that path. And so what we're able to do now is transform their entire business and their entire model by helping them be able to apply for grants quicker, to be able to grow and have a bigger impact in the community. And that just makes it great for us to be able to have that impact and go down that path. And that's what's been awesome for us.
Gentlemen, I literally have a billion more questions, but I know that we are at the end of our time today, and I appreciate the extra few minutes that you gave me. I want to make sure that if the audience wants to learn more about you, connect with you, utilize your services, where can they go to get in contact with you, to listen to MSP Unplugged, and to learn more about your respective businesses? Corey, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, you can hit Corey Kirkendoll at 5K Technical Services, www.5ktech.com. But also, you'll see us and the three amigos on MSP Unplugged, and I'll let Paco hit him up tell him where we hit him up with him and Rick.
For me, the easiest way to find me is over on LinkedIn, Paco Lebron. You can follow all of our shenanigans from there. And then as far as for MSP Unplugged, you can find us on our video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. And you can also find us on all your favorite podcatchers. We're on Amazon Music, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, to name a few. Look up MSP Unplugged podcast and we'll catch us every week. We normally try to release them on Tuesdays to provide you our versions of what we went through that week and put a little bit of value, hopefully, to those that are trying to figure out this thing known as managed services and being an MSP.
Thank you both so much. I'll see your audience on MSP Unplugged soon. So excited about that. But for the two of you, for now, good luck. Have a wonderful holiday season. And thank you so much for being here. I hope to have you back soon.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Corey and Paco for joining me today. And thank you for watching or listening. You can check out all episodes of Channel Insider Partner POV on channelinsider.com. Or head on over to youtube.com/channelinsider_news and trends. You can also listen to us as a podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow wherever possible so you never miss an episode. Once again, I'm Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.